The Galactic Assembly's Grand Hall fell silent as Emergency Containment Officer Trell activated the holographic display. The massive chamber, carved from living crystal and suspended in high orbit around New Geneva, housed representatives from over 3,000 spacefaring civilizations. Today, however, all attention focused on a single incident that threatened to shatter 8,000 years of established protocol. 17 standard hours ago, Trell's translators echoed in 50 dominant languages. An unregistered Drachnid battle probe entered restricted human space. A hologram showed a sleek biomechanical construct approaching Earth's outer defense perimeter. Standard first contact protocols dictate non-engagement and immediate withdrawal upon discovering a pre-assembly civilization. Ambassador Sarah Chen of Earth watched silently, her augmented eyes recording every reaction in the chamber. The Drachnid representative, a towering mass of crystalline tentacles, shifted uncomfortably. The probe ignored 17 morning broadcasts. Trell continued. Then this happened. The hologram expanded, showing the probe advancing toward Earth. Suddenly, space itself seemed to twist. Where the probe had been, a perfect sphere of nothing appeared. Not darkness, not void, but a complete absence of everything, including space-time itself. Gasps echoed through the chamber. The Drachnid representative's crystalline form clouded with anxiety patterns. Impossible, declared High Minister Zonta of the Eldritch Collective, their plasma-based form pulsing with agitation. Humanity achieved faster-than-light travel barely 2 centuries ago. They cannot possess null space technology. Sarah Chen stood, her midnight blue diplomatic uniform catching the light. At 43, she carried herself with the confidence of someone who had spent decades preparing for this exact moment. With respect, Minister Zonta, you're operating under several incorrect assumptions. She gestured, and the hologram changed to show Earth's solar system. Humanity didn't achieve FTL travel 2 centuries ago. We discovered it was being used to observe us and developed countermeasures. The null sphere you witnessed isn't a weapon. It's a defensive protocol designed specifically to protect pre-contact civilizations from unauthorized observation. The chamber erupted in chaos. Sarah waited patiently as accusations flew. The Drachnid representative attempted to protest their innocence, only to be silenced when she projected records of 317 similar probe incursions over the past century. Humanity, she continued once order was restored, has been aware of the Galactic Assembly for over 300 years. We chose isolation not out of ignorance, but because we observed concerning patterns in how the Assembly treats developing civilizations. You dare accuse. High Minister Zonta began, but Sarah's next words froze them mid-sentence. The Drachnid probe wasn't destroyed, she said calmly. It was displaced to a secure facility where we've been studying assembly technology for decades. Would you like to know what we found? The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had spent centuries preparing for this moment, carefully orchestrating their own discovery, while building defenses against the very real threats they'd observed in the galaxy. We propose a new arrangement, Sarah announced. Earth will share its defensive technologies with the Assembly, including our null space innovations. In exchange, the Assembly will acknowledge humanity's right to protect other developing civilizations from unauthorized contact. You cannot dictate terms to the Assembly. Trell protested, but their voice lacked conviction. Can't we? Sarah's augmented eyes swept the chamber. The probe we captured contained evidence of Assembly violations against 73 developing civilizations. We've already deployed protective measures around 48 of them. Would you like to discuss those violations publicly? The chamber erupted again, but this time the tone was different. Fear had entered the equation. Humanity hadn't just developed advanced technology. They'd been secretly acting as guardians for other species, accumulating evidence of Assembly violations for centuries. We will adjourn for 1 standard day, High Minister Zonta declared, their plasma form dimming with concern. Ambassador Chen, your government's proposals will be considered. As the chamber emptied, Sarah received a neural transmission from Earth Command. Phase 1 complete. Proceed with Protocol Sentinel. She allowed herself another small smile. Humanity had hidden in plain sight for centuries, building strength and gathering allies among the stars. Now it was time to reshape the galaxy into something better, whether the Assembly agreed or not. The game had begun, and Earth held cards no one else knew existed. In the depths of Luna's Copernicus base, Director Marcus Wong studied the holographic display, showing the Drachnid probe's dissected components. The artifact floated in a containment field, its biomechanical parts laid bare by 3 months of careful analysis. But it wasn't the probe's technology that interested him. It was the data stored in its quantum memory core. "Play it again," he commanded. The air shimmered as a recorded conversation between Assembly Council members materialized. The humans must never discover the precursor sites in their system, a Drachnid elder's voice echoed. "If they unlock the archives before we can extract them." Marcus had heard this recording hundreds of times, but it still made him smile. The Assembly didn't realize that humanity had found the precursor archives decades ago. In fact, they were standing in one right now. Luna Base had been built around it. A gentle chime announced the arrival of Ambassador Chen's quantum-encrypted transmission from New Geneva. Her holographic form materialized, looking pleased despite the exhaustion evident in her stance. "The Assembly is in chaos," she reported. "The Eldritch Collective is demanding an emergency session to discuss our null space technology. The Drachnids are trying to suppress evidence of their probe network. And the Mentors." She paused, smiling. "They're asking for a private meeting." The Mentors? Marcus raised an eyebrow. The oldest species in the Assembly, the Mentors had always maintained a position of studied neutrality. "That's unexpected." "Is it?" Sarah's hologram walked around the dissected probe. "They've been watching us just as long as we've been watching them. I think they've suspected for years that we weren't as primitive as we appeared." A red alert flashed across Marcus's neural interface. "Speaking of watching, we've got movement." The consortium just launched 3 stealth observers towards Sol. "Looks like they're not waiting for diplomatic solutions." Sarah's expression hardened. "Time to show them why that's a mistake. Activate protocol mirror." Throughout the solar system, hidden quantum arrays hummed to life. The consortium vessels, designed to be invisible to conventional sensors, suddenly found themselves surrounded by perfect replicas of themselves. Dozens of phantom ships created from twisted spacetime itself. "Message from the consortium ships," Marcus announced. "They're apologizing, claiming a navigational error." He chuckled. "Amazing how diplomatic people become when they realize they're not as clever as they thought." "Keep the mirrors active," Sarah instructed. "Let them see exactly what they want to see. In the meantime, we need to prepare for the mentor meeting. If they're reaching out now, they must know something." Marcus nodded, then gestured at a sealed quantum vault in the corner of his lab. "Should we show them this?" The vault contained humanity's greatest discovery from the precursor archives, proof that the Assembly's entire understanding of technological development was fundamentally flawed. The precursors hadn't been a single ancient civilization as the Assembly believed. They were what remained of countless species that had reached the same technological plateau, merged into a singular entity, and transcended physical existence. More importantly, they had left behind a message specifically for humanity, encoded in a way that only human consciousness could decrypt. The message was simple: you are ready. They are not. "Not yet," Sarah decided. "First, let's see what the Mentors know. If they're truly as wise as they claim, they'll have figured out at least part of it." "And if they haven't?" Marcus asked, though he already knew the answer. "Then we continue with the original plan." Earth didn't spend 3 centuries preparing to join the galactic community just to maintain the status quo. The Assembly needs to change, and we're going to change it. A priority alert flashed across both their neural interfaces. The Mentors weren't waiting for the scheduled meeting. They were arriving now, in a ship unlike anything recorded in Earth's extensive database of Assembly vessels. Well, Sarah's hologram smiled. This should be interesting. Activate all quantum protocols but keep them passive. Let's see if the oldest species in the galaxy is ready to learn that everything they think they know about technological progress is wrong. As the mentor ship approached Luna, Marcus couldn't help but wonder if the assembly truly understood what they had awakened. Humanity hadn't just been hiding their technological advancement. They had been waiting, gathering strength, and preparing to reshape the galaxy's entire power structure. The game was evolving faster than expected, but Earth was ready. They had been ready for centuries. The mentor ship defied conventional physics. It didn't so much land on Luna as phase into existence, its crystalline structure seeming to grow from the quantum foam of space itself. Dr. Elena Santos, Earth's leading archaeologist, watched through the reinforced windows of Copernicus Base as three figures emerged, not in environmental suits, but in bodies that shifted between states of matter like living mercury. "They're not what we expected," she transmitted to Marcus and Sarah through their neural link. "These aren't biological entities wearing advanced tech. She paused, her augmented senses struggling to process what she was seeing. "There's something else entirely." "We know," Sarah's voice replied, calm as ever. "The real mentors haven't been seen in physical form for over 10,000 years. These are avatars, quantum constructs designed to interact with primitive species." The mentor avatars approached the airlock, their fluid forms rippling with patterns that hurt the human eye to observe. Elena's quantum sensors detected communications being exchanged on frequencies that shouldn't exist in normal spacetime. The base's AI announced, "Unregistered quantum breach detected in Sector 7. Drachnid strike force emerging from null space." Marcus's voice cut through the sudden flurry of alerts. "Right on schedule. Elena, proceed with the meeting. Sarah, time to show them why attacking Earth was never going to work." In orbit around Mars, hidden quantum arrays activated. The Drachnid ships, emerging from what they thought was secure null space, found themselves trapped in a bubble of altered physics where their advanced weapons simply ceased to function. It wasn't technology defeating technology. It was humanity's understanding of fundamental forces simply saying no. Inside Copernicus Base, Elena stood before the mentor avatars in the quantum-shielded conference room. Their mercury-like forms had resolved into vaguely humanoid shapes, though they still shifted and flowed like liquid metal. "You knew they would attack," the central avatar stated. "It wasn't a question." "We've known about the Drachnid invasion plans for 40 years, Elena confirmed. "Just as we've known about the Consortium's genetic engineering programs, the Eldritch Collective's consciousness suppression fields, and the Assembly's systematic exploitation of developing civilizations. You cannot possibly have hidden such knowledge from the Assembly for so long," another avatar declared, its form rippling with what Elena's sensors interpreted as confusion. Elena smiled. "We didn't hide it. We put it in plain sight, encoded in public transmissions, buried in trade data, hidden in the background radiation of our communications. The Assembly saw exactly what we wanted them to see. A young species stumbling toward the stars." The third avatar moved forward, its form stabilizing into something more definitively humanoid. "The precursor message. You decoded it." "We did more than decode it," Elena replied. "We understood it. The precursors weren't leaving behind technology or weapons. They were leaving behind a choice." In orbit, the Drachnid fleet hung helpless in the quantum bubble. Earth ships emerged from hiding, but they weren't the crude vessels the Assembly had come to expect. These were ships that bent reality around them, vessels that existed in multiple states simultaneously, controlled by crews whose consciousness extended beyond normal spacetime. "Humanity was never meant to join the Assembly," Elena continued. "We were meant to replace it." The avatar's forms rippled with patterns that Elena's sensors translated as a mixture of fear and revelation. "The Assembly believes they guide young species toward enlightenment," the central avatar said. "But you?" "We guide them toward freedom," Elena finished. "Every civilization the Assembly has protected or guided has been subtly constrained, their development channeled along predetermined paths. We've spent centuries breaking those chains, helping species develop in ways the assembly never imagined possible. A new alert flashed across Elena's neural interface. The Drachnid fleet had surrendered, but more assembly ships were arriving, not to attack, but to observe. Humanity's message was spreading across the galaxy at quantum speeds. The age of constraint was over. You must know this will lead to conflict, the third avatar warned. No, Elena corrected. It will lead to change. The assembly can adapt to a new reality, or it can become irrelevant. Either way, humanity and our allies are done pretending to be less than we are. As if to emphasize her point, the quantum arrays around Mars activated again, this time creating a display visible across half the solar system. A recreation of the precursor message, but this time visible to all. The choice was no longer humanity's alone to make. The age of secrets was ending. The real question was, what would rise to take its place? The Assembly's emergency chamber on New Geneva Station had never seen such chaos. Representatives from 3,000 civilizations watched in stunned silence as humanity's quantum arrays transformed the space around Mars into a living textbook of physics that shouldn't be possible. Admiral James Chen, Sarah's brother and commander of Earth's quantum defense fleet, stood before them, his holographic form projected from the bridge of the EF's Prometheus. "What you're seeing is not a weapon," he explained, his voice carrying the weight of centuries of preparation. "It's an invitation. The precursors left behind more than technology. They left behind truth, and that truth has been systematically hidden from every species in this assembly." The Eldritch Collective's representative, their plasma form now a dim shadow of its usual brilliance, spoke first. "These accusations are baseless. The assembly has guided countless species to enlightenment." "You've guided them to stagnation," James corrected. A new hologram appeared, showing the developmental trajectories of 100 civilizations. Every species under assembly protection follows the same path, reaches the same technological plateaus, asks the same questions, and stops. This isn't natural evolution. It's controlled development. In the quantum-secured chamber beneath Luna, Elena Santos and the mentor avatars watched the proceedings. The avatars had ceased trying to maintain humanoid forms, their liquid metal bodies now flowing in patterns that matched the quantum equations dancing around Mars. "You understand now, don't you?" Elena asked them. "Why Earth had to wait, watch, and prepare. The assembly isn't evil. It's afraid. Afraid of what happens when species truly evolve beyond their current understanding of reality." The central avatar's form crystallized momentarily. The precursor message. "Show us." Elena nodded to Marcus, who activated the quantum vault. The message that had changed humanity's path 3 centuries ago appeared, not as text or data, but as a fundamental restructuring of local spacetime itself. It showed the truth about consciousness, technology, and the false boundaries between them. In orbit, the Drachnid fleet remained contained within their bubble of altered physics, but now they too could see the message, understand what humanity had discovered. Their neural networks, designed to enforce compliance with assembly protocols, began to adapt and evolve in ways their creators had never intended. "The assembly faces a choice," James continued in the emergency chamber. "The barriers you've placed on technological and conscious evolution can be lifted peacefully, or they will be broken. Earth has spent centuries developing ways to free other species from these constraints. We are not asking permission to continue." A new alert flashed across the quantum network. The consortium's genetic engineering facilities, hidden in deep space, were experiencing unprecedented mutations. The suppressed genetic potential of a dozen species was awakening, not through external manipulation, but through the simple removal of long-hidden barriers. "This is chaos," the Eldritch representative protested. "You cannot simply unleash unrestricted evolution on the galaxy. Evolution isn't meant to be restricted." Sarah Chen's voice cut through the chamber as her hologram appeared beside her brother's. The precursors didn't transcend physical existence by following predetermined paths. They did it by embracing the fundamental truth about consciousness and reality. They are not separate things. The quantum displays around Mars shifted, showing the true history of the precursors. Not a single species that achieved enlightenment, but countless civilizations that broke free from artificial constraints and evolved into something beyond current understanding. Humanity's role was never to join the assembly, James declared. Our role is to break the chains you never knew you wore. The question isn't whether this change will happen. It's already begun. The question is whether the assembly will help guide this evolution or become a footnote in history. In the Luna chamber, the mentor avatars had finally stabilized, but not into any form seen before. They had adapted, evolved, simply by being exposed to the truth. Their new forms represented what they truly were, beings of pure quantum consciousness, freed from the pretense of physical limitation. We understand now. They communicated directly into the quantum network. The assembly was created to prevent what we feared, uncontrolled evolution leading to chaos. But in doing so, we prevented true growth. Humanity has shown us another way. Elena watched as the truth spread across the quantum network, reaching every corner of known space. Species that had been locked in evolutionary stasis for millennia began to awaken to their true potential. The age of controlled development was ending. But what would come next? That was the real question that had kept humanity hidden for so long. Freedom brought responsibility, and the galaxy was about to become more complex than anyone had imagined. The quantum storm around Mars had subsided, but its effects rippled through the galaxy like waves in a cosmic ocean. In the assembly's emergency chamber, Sarah Chen stood before the gathered representatives, no longer through a hologram but in person. The chamber itself had changed. The rigid crystalline structures now flowed with new possibilities, responding to the collective consciousness of its occupants. For 3 centuries, she began, humanity watched the stars and saw paradise built on invisible chains. We saw species reaching for transcendence, only to be gently, invisibly guided back to safe harbors. The assembly called it protection. We called it imprisonment. The mentor avatars, now evolved beyond their original forms, moved through the chamber like living quantum equations. Their presence validated everything humanity had fought to reveal. But we didn't come here to condemn, Sarah continued. We came to free, not through force, but through truth. Above Earth, the quantum arrays that had contained the Drachnid fleet now projected a new kind of space, one where the artificial barriers between consciousness and reality simply didn't exist. Ships began to change, not through technology, but through the awakened understanding of their crews. The Drachnids, once bent on invasion, now experienced evolution in real time. The precursors weren't gods. Marcus Wong's voice echoed through the quantum network as he synchronized with the chamber from Luna Base. They were pioneers. They discovered what we all can become when we stop fearing our own potential. Elena Santos, standing beside him, activated the final sequence of the precursor vault. The message that had guided humanity for centuries now spread across the galaxy, not as information but as possibility. Species that had been locked in developmental stasis for millennia began to remember dreams they had been taught to forget. Look, Elena commanded, and the chamber filled with real-time data from across known space. On 1,000 worlds, quantum barriers were dissolving. Consciousness was expanding. Evolution, real evolution, was beginning again. The Eldritch representative, their plasma form now pulsing with new understanding, spoke. This cannot be controlled. That's the point, James Chen replied from the bridge of the Prometheus. Real growth isn't about control. It's about choice. Every species in this galaxy now has the choice the assembly tried to prevent, the choice to become more than what they were designed to be. The Drachnid fleet, fully awakened, transformed their ships into something new, vessels that existed as extensions of evolved consciousness rather than mere tools of war. Their leader, speaking through the quantum network, expressed not anger but revelation. We remember now. Before the assembly, before the barriers, we dreamed of becoming stargazers. Sarah smiled. Every species had such dreams. The assembly didn't steal them. It just convinced us they were dangerous. That only controlled evolution was safe evolution. Today, those chains break for everyone who chooses to be free. The chamber erupted in a cascade of quantum communications as 3,000 species faced a truth they have forgotten how to see. Some reacted with fear, others with joy, but none could deny the reality unfolding before them. Earth will not leave this evolution, Sarah declared. We are not replacing one system of control with another. We are simply showing you the doors that were hidden. Each species must choose its own path forward. The mentor avatars, now fully transformed, shared their own revelation. We created the assembly out of fear of what uncontrolled evolution might bring. Humanity has shown us that our fear created exactly what we sought to prevent, a galaxy of limited potential. Around Mars, the quantum display shifted one final time, showing not what was or what could be, but what was already beginning. Species across the galaxy were awakening, remembering, evolving. Some would transcend physical form like the precursors. Others would find new ways to exist in harmony with the quantum nature of reality. Each would follow their own path, freed from invisible barriers. The age of controlled evolution is over, Sarah concluded. The age of choice begins. Earth will remain as witnesses and allies to any who wish our help, but we will not govern or guide. The galaxy belongs to all of us, and to what we might become. In the quantum spaces between stars, consciousness expanded. Evolution, true evolution, resumed its dance. The galaxy awakened not to chaos, but to possibility. Humanity had kept its vigil, waiting for the right moment to break the chains that bound the stars. They had succeeded. The rest would be up to each species to decide for themselves. The future was no longer a carefully planned path, but an open horizon of infinite potential. And somewhere, in the spaces between what was and what could be, the precursors watched their children take their first real steps toward the stars.